At the beginning of the story, we meet a 19-year-old boy named Oscar. Boys at that age are usually interested in girls, but Oscar is completely different. He is very mature and influenced by French literature, especially the thinking of Voltaire and Rousseau. Oscar is very handsome and smart, and he also speaks French. Oscar attends a boarding school where he is very popular among the girls. Every girl wants to be his boyfriend, but he is not interested in girls his own age, finding them immature. Oscar's boarding school has a few days off for Thanksgiving, so all the students are traveling home by train. Oscar is on the train with his best friend, talking to him. A beautiful girl who also attends the same boarding school approaches him. She likes him and wants to go on a date with him, but Oscar politely refuses. Seeing this, Oscar's friend says, "She's the most beautiful girl in the entire boarding school. The boys are crazy about her, and you rejected her." Oscar tells his friend that he likes older women who are intelligent and mature. He says that he's in love with a woman and is planning to win her heart during Thanksgiving. Afterward, Oscar gets off the train and catches a taxi with his friend, and they both go home. When Oscar arrives home, his father is overjoyed to see him. Oscar's mother died a few years ago. His father remarried a woman named Eve so that his stepmother, Eve, could take care of him. Oscar's father is a university professor and a heart specialist or cardiologist. That evening, Oscar's father throws a party to celebrate his return home. Many guests are present. Oscar's father introduces him to a girl his own age, but Oscar isn't interested in her. He just stares at his stepmother, Eve. In reality, the woman Oscar was telling his friend about his love is none other than his stepmother, Eve. Eve is a sensible, mature, and independent woman. When Oscar's father married Eve after his mother's death, Eve began caring for Oscar. During that time, Oscar fell in love with Eve. But then he went to boarding school. But he still hasn't been able to forget her. What Oscar wants is socially unacceptable, but he follows his heart. He sees beauty in everything about Eve. Her walk, her words, her wisdom. Oscar begins to see her as an ideal, perfect woman, just like the one he'd read about in books. But Eve has no idea. Here, Oscar tries to open up to Eve, but Eve, unaware, doesn't understand any of his actions. At a party, Oscar meets Eve's best friend, a witch. She is a modern-minded woman and loves to live freely. He's a massage therapist by profession. Oscar's father then asks him to drop off the same girl he hadn't shown any interest in. Oscar doesn't want to go, but he's forced to. Oscar goes out with the girl to catch a cab. "Not a bad body," she says. The girl tells him, "I want to go on a date with you." But Oscar says, "There's a huge difference between us. My thinking is completely different. That's why I can't go on a date with you." Oscar then puts the girl in a taxi and sends her home. Oscar hasn't been able to confess his feelings to Eve, which makes him very sad. He wants to go to a bar to drink to drown his sorrow, but he's too young to enter a bar. So he enters the bar with a fake ID and starts drinking. Oscar drinks too much and then leaves. On the way, he's staggering drunk when he bumps into a diner. The witch sees that Oscar has had too much to drink, and that his father would be very angry if he went home in this state. Seeing his condition, the witch brings him to her apartment. Oscar is very tired. He lies down on the bed. The witch says that he needs a massage and asks him to undress. Then she gives him a massage. Oscar, drunk, is overcome by the sight of the witch. The witch, too, loses control at the sight of Oscar shirtless, and the two become very close. The next morning, when Oscar wakes up, he finds the witch sleeping next to him. He deeply regrets the previous night and realizes he made a big mistake. Oscar tries to quietly get dressed and leave without saying a word. But then he sees the witch's boyfriend in the other room. Oscar is terrified by the sight, but the witch's boyfriend thinks Oscar came for a massage. Then the witch arrives and pretends that Oscar really came for a massage. After this, when Oscar comes home, his father asks him, "Where were you last night?" Oscar lies, claiming he was with a girl from his boarding school. Oscar discovers that Eve has gone to work. Unable to hide his love for Eve any longer, he looks for an opportunity to speak to her. Oscar plans to surprise Eve by taking her lunch so he can talk to her alone. Oscar begins packing Eve's lunch, which overjoys his father. Oscar's father, a simple man, is unaware of his son's true feelings. Oscar then brings Eve lunch to her clinic where she works. Eve is overjoyed to see him and thinks, "What a wonderful son I have." Eve is a strict doctor, and Oscar asks her some questions about the heart. He asks her why the heart is the symbol of love. They are talking like this when Eve receives a call from the witch. After talking, Eve tells Oscar that the two of them and your father are going out for dinner tonight, and Diane is going with them. Hearing this, Oscar panics. He fears Diane might tell Eve that they slept together. So, Oscar goes to Diane's house to talk to her, but she's not there. Her boyfriend tells Oscar that Diane has gone to a restaurant with her friends. Oscar arrives at the restaurant where Diane is sitting with her friends, drinking coffee. Oscar tries to talk to Diane alone, but her friends ask him to sit down and start talking to her. All of Diane's friends are impressed by Oscar's conversation and start flirting with her. After a while, all of Diane's friends leave. Oscar then tells Diane to forget what happened between them and not tell anyone about it. Especially to Eve. Diane says, "Don't worry. No one will know about what happened between us." She wants this relationship with Oscar to continue because the witch is beginning to feel that perhaps Oscar possesses a depth she hasn't seen in any other relationship. She begins to feel an emotional connection with Oscar and longs for him to spend more time with her, but Oscar refuses and leaves. Now Oscar is caught in a deep mental dilemma. He wants to break free from the witch and confess his feelings to Eve. Oscar goes to his best friend's house and tells him the truth. Eve is the woman he loves. His friend is shocked to hear this. Oscar also reveals that he once slept with the witch while drunk, but now he wants to get rid of her. Hearing this, his friend convinces him that this is all wrong. He should forget Eve. But Oscar refuses. He sees Eve not as a mother, but as an ideal woman with whom he wants to be forever. That night, Oscar gets ready and goes to dinner at a hotel with his family and Diane. Everyone at the table drinks first, but Diane starts drinking heavily and flirting with Oscar in French. Eve and her husband don't know French, so they don't understand. Oscar tries to stop Diane from talking like this and from drinking more, but she doesn't stop. Oscar is very afraid Diane might blurt out that they slept together, so he tries to silence Diane. His father and Eve are taken aback by Oscar's behavior. When Diane goes to the bathroom, Oscar follows her. He stops her and tells her that what she's doing is wrong. But Diane starts to force Oscar. Oscar's father sees them. When they return, his father asks, "Are you both hiding something from us?" Diane says, "We love each other." Hearing this, Oscar's father and Eve are shocked and say, "This relationship is wrong. There's a huge age difference between you two. This shouldn't have happened." At night, when Oscar's father is busy at work, Eve approaches him and tries to get close. But he says, "I have to work right now." So Eve leaves. Oscar secretly witnesses this. The next day, Eve and Diane meet. Eve explains to Diane, "You shouldn't have had a relationship with Oscar. There's a huge age difference between you two. This is all wrong." But Diane says, "I found Oscar a charming young man. I really like his behavior and the way he talks." Diane continues, "If anyone else were in my place, if she were a woman, she would have done the same, and perhaps you would have done the same." Eve and Oscar then play tennis. But Oscar is hit on the head by a ball, and they both return home. Eve then sits Oscar down and asks him, "Why did you have a relationship with Dane? It's all wrong." Oscar replies, "I only slept with her once. There's nothing between us." He continues, "I was drunk and Dane was wearing your scarf, which reminded me of you, and I went to bed with her." Oscar says, "I love you, Eve." Eve is surprised to hear this. She doesn't scold Oscar, but rather explains that at his age, you don't understand the difference between love and attraction. What you're feeling is a temporary infatuation, which you mistake for love. You still have a lot to learn. Only with life's experiences will you understand what true love is. When Eve rejects Oscar's feelings, Oscar doesn't break down, but begins to understand himself. He realizes that his love was a fantasy. He sought the ideal he saw in Eve. From then on, he tries to forget Eve and distances himself from the witch. Initially, he thought his relationship with the witch was a mistake, but later he realizes that not everything in life is within our control. Sometimes mistakes become experiences. Oscar was mentally mature, but he lacked an older brother or a mentor to whom he could openly and unhesitatingly express his feelings and guide him on the right path. The witch also saw Oscar as a man, which entangled Oscar in all this. A few days later, Oscar's boarding school holidays end, and his father and Eve drop him off at the railway station. When his father goes to buy a ticket, Oscar apologizes to Eve and admits that he was carried away by emotions. Oscar then boards the train and sits with his friend. Then he bumps into the same girl who had a crush on him and had come to talk to him at the beginning of the story. "Thanks, Oscar." The girl quotes Voltaire, "If we don't find something good, we'll definitely find something new." Oscar looks at her with loving eyes, and now he's learned to connect with people his own age. Oscar's friend asks him about Eve. Oscar says, "My obsession with Eve wasn't as important as I once thought." As the brain continues, Oscar smiles softly, and the story ends. Friends, thank you very much for watching the video this far. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon to